All righty. Hello and welcome everybody to the Skills Kickstart session today on comparison reporting, sales and beyond. Our lead presenter today is going to be Jocelyn. We are going to get started here in just a moment. I'm going to give it a minute to 30 seconds to kind of let some other attendees join, get settled, get logged in. Before we kind of get started though, my name is Alex Luna. I am going to be the facilitator for this session. So if you do have any questions during this session, please utilize that Q&A feature or that chat button, and I'd be happy to share those questions with Jossie during this. Like I said, we are going to wait 30 seconds here to let people join in, and we'll get started here in just a second. Alrighty, and it does look like we got a good crowd in here already, so we're just going to go ahead and get started because we have a lot to cover today. So with that, for those of you who just joined, this is the Skills Kickstart session on comparison reporting with our lead presenter, Jocelyn. So with that, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Alex. Like Alex said, we're going to talk all about comparison reporting today. My name is Jocelyn or Jossie Ironcloud. I'm a customer enablement specialist here at Encompass. I've been here just about 3 years. I started my journey here at Encompass on our CRM support team, which at the time focused a lot on our reporting tools like Fusion and Comparison. So I'm excited to talk to you all about comparison reports. All right, so today we're going to do kind of a high level overview of all of the different types of comparison reports that we have in Encompass. We'll talk about what each one does and when you might use them, and then we'll take a look at an example or two for each one and leave some time at the end for questions. If you were in my last comparison report training where we focused on that sales report, you've probably seen this before. There are 16 types of comparison reports in Encompass. Probably about everybody in this meeting is familiar with that sales type, right? Probably the most common one used. It's the biggest one, most robust, but we have all of these other different types of comparison reports available to you as well that probably aren't as commonly used, but have some really powerful insights in there. They range from, again, that sales report to accounting reports, inventory, depletion, surveys, and a whole lot more. Now, I want to quickly go back in time and talk about why we have all these different types of comparison reports in Encompass. The first type of reporting we had in Encompass way back in the day was just canned reports. And basically what those were like our dashboard reports, like the bins report, if you're familiar with that, or the accounts receivable report. They're a dashboard that have those filters at the top that you can add and remove columns, but they're not very versatile. So we needed a lot more flexibility than that. So then came comparison reports. Comparison reports were our first kind of customizable report that we had where you can pick and choose how things were grouped and displayed, give us better insight into a lot of that common table data, and gave us the ability to perform pivots on that data. So, for example, in the beginning days of Encompass, if I needed to know how many products we carry for a certain supplier, my only option was to go to the products table, filter that table, and get a list. That's pretty much it. Now we have a products report, that comparison products report, where I have the ability to use those different groupings and columns for a pivot and give me that better insight to my products. Of course, then we moved into even more complex reporting with that Fusion reporting where it is completely customizable, right? But many times comparison is going to get us what we need without having to do all of the work of Fusion. There are also 4 special types of comparison reports that we'll cover today as well. These are the 4 here. So starting with discount, this is a really common report to look at participation. It's probably the primary reason that people use this report. Data is really similar to like a sales comparison report, but it's much more simplified and allows you to use many group buys, where in that sales comparison report, you're limited to the ones that we give you. A compound report, pretty fancy, lets you take 2 comparison reports and basically smash them together to either display them side by side or in different tabs. Those are pretty cool. We'll see those here later. And then finally, the ranking report does pretty much what you would think it would do. It ranks different data points. We'll take a look at an example of those. Before we go look at the different types of comparison reports, though, I want to mention that because there's so many, 16 plus these four, we won't do a deep dive into each one today. We're going to talk about some of the common examples for why you might use them, but we won't spend too much time in each one of them so that you can see them all. However, keep an eye out if we have any future sessions that deep dive into these different reports. And because, like I said, we had a comparison report training before this one where we focused primarily on that sales report, we're going to skip over this comparison sales report today, and we're not going to talk about those really basic elements like what are group bys, what are filters. If you have questions about those, go back and watch that recording. We go all over that. Okay, we have a lot to look at, so we're just going to jump right into those reports. So I'm going to switch us over here to our site. All right. That good old multi-factor authentication. Give me 1 second. All right. So just like the sales comparison report, all we need to do is go to that new comparison report dashboard. You can do that either in the universal search or in that side panel in your reporting section. I'm just going to type in new comparison report. All right, then we've got all of our tabs across the top here. And then the 4 special reports we'll talk about at the end are actually across the top up here. But we're going to start kind of going down the line with all of our different categories here. So we are going to start out in the products report. So I'm going to click on our products tab here. It's going to look really similar to that sales report, right? A lot of the same setup here in the top with our groupings, values, and columns. We have a lot less filter options down here. And really, when we're looking at our filters, these are the tables that are going to be included in this report. So I've got data from the products table and the inventory table, and those are the things I can bring in. This one's really simple, pretty simple products report, but there's a lot of different ways that you can use it. The primary purpose of this report is to get a product count based on the groupings that you pick. You don't necessarily have to get a product count. You could just do a bunch of different groupings and group your products in whatever way you want. But the one value we get here in this report is a product count. So let's say I want to see my products in a specific brand and how many of those products are in each inventory status. I can use my groupings here to start by grouping everything by that product status, that inventory status, right? So I'm going to search for product status here. There we go. Pick my product status. And then I want to group all of my products by that status. So in my child, I'm going to look for product, num and name, so I can see that ID and the name of the product. Okay. Then I want to see a count of those. How many products do I have in each status? So in my values, I'll pick my one and only, the product count. And then I know I want to look at a specific brand, right? So I'm going to come down to my filters, just like any other comparison report. I'm going to open up my product filters here because that's where brand lives. Here's my brand filter. And I'm just going to pick one here. We'll just choose all of these, and then I'll run my report. Okay, so looks very similar layout to a sales comparison report. We're just looking at different data. So I've got my groupings. My first grouping brings in this really fancy kind of pill colored tag here of my different statuses. So I can see my grouped discontinued products here. So here's all of my discontinued products, all of my active products. And then we'll see if we have any others. Nope, just these 2. So that product count gives me the ability to get that overall total. So I can see I have a total of 148 products in this brand. 54 of them are discontinued. And we have 94 that are active. So it gives me a really quick glance into my products here without having to go to the table, adding them all up, or going to a Fusion report and doing this all manually, right? Now you can see it also gave me a column total here, just like the sales comparison report does. Not a super helpful one in this instance, so I could go turn it off. Not really bothering me here, so I can leave it. Okay. Now, let's say instead of looking at my product statuses, maybe I'm working on updating my commission structure. If any of you use commissions out there, you know that all of our products in the system need to belong to a commission group. And a really quick way to go see if you're missing any products that should be in the commission group that aren't is using this products report. So I'm going to reset this report here and take out all of my values here. I'm just going to click on comparison to reset it and come back to my products tab. Now it's blank. And to start off my report, to find those commission groups, I'm going to group all of my products by that commission group. So in my parent, I'm going to search for that commission group. There it is. And then I want to group all of my products by that. So in the child, I'll look for product num and name again. And then in my value, again, the only one I get, the product count. And then to find those products that don't have that commission group, I can still use my filters down here. So I'm going to open up that product filter. And I actually have a commission group filter in here. So in my second row, I've got that commission group filter. And we have one that is not commissioned. This is the default one that if you're setting up a new product and you don't know if it's going to be commissioned or you don't use the commission structure, this is the one you pick. So I'm going to choose this one. And then I only want to see products that are active. I don't really care about putting products in a commission group if they're not even active. So I'm also going to set the status filter to active. So now I'm going to see all of my products that are in the commission group, not commissioned, and that are active. So I'll go ahead and create my report. All right. Looks like I've got 31 products in the system that are not in a commission group. My company does use a commission structure, so I can look through this list pretty quickly here, see if there's anything missing that should be in a commission group. Really easy way for me to find that ID, go update that record, put it in the right commission group. Obviously, there's a lot more ways that you can use this products report. Those are two pretty simple ones, but for the sake of time, and we have so many to look at, I am going to move on to our next one. So our next one across the top here is a customers tab. Again, going to be very similar structure. We do have a few more tables that are brought in on this report. Routing, chains, AR accounts, obviously the customer table, and then we have some address information in here as well. Just like the products report, we get one value, a customer count. So same kind of concept here where we're looking at getting a count for the group buys that we pick for this report. So let's say I want to see how many of our customers are dispersed across our sales reps. So how many does each one of our sales reps service? So for this one, I want to group our customers by their assigned sales rep. So instead of the customer and the parent, I'm going to search for the sales rep assigned. Okay. And then I want to group all of my customers by their sales rep. So in the child, we'll look for customer, num, and company. Again, so I get that ID and the name. And then again, my values, my only one that I get, my customer count here. And let's say for the purposes of this report, I'm only interested in the one location that I work out of. And obviously, I really only care about customers that are active, really care about the ones that are out of business or inactive with us. So I'm going to come down to my filters. I'm going to open up my customer filters here. All right. First one across the top I see is that account status. I know I only care about active customers, so I'm going to pick that. Okay. And then I'm going to pick a location filter as well. So my customer location filter here. I'm just going to choose my Sterling location. That's the one I work out of. So those are the ones I want to see. All right. I'm going to run my report here. And I'm going to get a list of all of my sales reps and the customers that are assigned to them and how many are assigned to them with that customer count. So I can see right off the bat, my sales rep Sam is getting a really luck of the draw here with only 4 customers while Robbie has 80. So we might need to do some reworking of our routes here. But it gives me a really quick glance of how our customers are dispersed across these different sales reps. Here we've got another one who's got over 100. Maybe we can rework some of our routes here a little bit to make them a little bit more even. They're a really quick way to see that. Now, maybe instead of the routes, I'm more interested in customer information. Let's say I want to see license expiration dates for our customers that we sell alcohol to. If we don't have that documented license in there, I want to get a list of them so I can make sure the next time our reps go out that they're gathering that license so we can put it on their record. We can super easy do that in this report too. So again, I'm going to reset this report. I'm just going to click that comparison button and go back to our customers tab. Now we're starting with that blank slate again. For this one, I do want to group by the customer. So I want to see the customer, who are they, and then we're going to see that license. But I don't know customer IDs, so I'm going to do that customer num and company again so I can actually see their name. And I don't really need a grouping in this instance. We're not grouping anything. I just want to see their license expiration date. So right there in the parent next to it, I'm going to search for that license expiration date field. There it is. We'll bring that in. In this instance, I don't really care about having a value. I don't need to know the number of customers with license expiration dates. I just want to see the customer and the license expiration date. So I can actually leave this blank. The only thing I need to run a comparison report as a reminder is at least one parent. I don't even need a value. So we're going to leave it blank in this one. I am going to add some filters here though to help me kind of pare down the customers that I want to see. So again, I'm not really worried about the customers that we're only selling NA products to for their license. They don't need it. So I'm going to come down and filter out those customers. So I'm going to come to my customer filters here and expand. I'm only worried about active customers because I don't need a license for people we're not servicing anymore. So I'm going to filter to our active account status. I still work out of that Sterling location, so I'm going to still filter to that Sterling location for my benefit. And then how I'm going to find those customers that we sell alcohol to. My company sets that up by product group. We specifically have a product group for NA only. So obviously the customers that are in this NA only product group, we are not going to need a license for, right? Now, I can quickly filter out these customers by choosing the NA only and then clicking this not in button at the bottom, meaning show me everybody else in this list except for the NA only. Okay. I do also have a none in here, meaning we're selling them nothing at this point. So I can choose this one too if I want to and filter them out. I've also got a paper only. Obviously, we don't need a license to sell somebody paper, so we'll click the paper one. I'm going to filter out these three here and click OK. So now I should only be seeing customers that are active in my Sterling location and that we sell alcohol to. So when I create my report here, all right, so I've got a list of all of my customers that meet that criteria. I can see their license expiration date over here on the right. And the nice thing here is I, at the bottom of this report, have a list of customers where the license expiration date says is null, which means on the customers table, we have no value in the license expiration date field. So I can quickly scan through here, say, oh, I know this Hootenannies is a bar. We should definitely have a license expiration date on hand for them. We need to go collect that. It's a really quick way for me to come through, see what we're missing, and then maybe I need to let that sales rep know, or whoever it may be, to collect that the next time that they're there. Looks like we have a lot of work to do. All right. We're going to move on to our next report. We've still got quite a few to go through here. So I'm going to head back to the comparison edit screen here, and we are going to move on to the purchases tab. Okay. So the purchases report is very similar to the sales comparison report, but instead of looking at invoice transactions, we're looking at purchases. So on the flip side, an invoice is to a purchase, as a load sheet is to a shipment, and a customer is to a vendor. So they work very similar, just looking at that opposite of a purchase instead of a sale. We do get quite a few more values here, just like the sales report. These are aimed more towards that purchase side though, so things like the laden cost, freight, FOB, more purchase specific values in here. And then we've got more filters at the bottom than the other reports we've been looking at. So we've got the shipments table, purchase, some quantity filters in here and address, the products table and inventory table. So a little bit more that we can pull in here. So for this one, pretty simple. We're just looking at some purchases. So let's say I want to see the number of cases that we're buying each month from each vendor. I want to see that last year compared to this year. So give me the count of cases that we're buying from each supplier, and let's compare it year over year. Super simple to do in here. Handy enough, it already puts the vendor in the parent for me, which is what I want. I want to group by my vendor that we're purchasing from. And I want to see that by month, right? I actually have a group by in here that is month. Here it is. So I'm grouping my months by the vendor, and then I can get a value for each of those. So I'm worried about cases, not case equivs. So I'm going to switch my case equivs to cases instead. Okay. I do know that I want to see that year over year. And if you were in my last comparison report training, you know that we do those year over year comparisons with a column. So by default, it's set to none. But instead, I'm going to switch this to years. So I get that comparison year over year. To make sure that I'm pulling in last year's data as well, I need to update my date filter. So here we can see it's automatically set to this year, which is fine. What I need to update is the years filter down here from only this year to the last 2 years. So show me 2024 and 2025. All right, let's just see what this does here. I'm not going to take out any filters. Let's just look at everyone. Okay, so what I'm seeing is all of my vendors in these top grouping here in the gray bar. Underneath, I've got all of the months of the year. And then I have my 2 columns, cases for 2024 and cases for 2025. You can see just like a sales comparison report, it brought in some column totals for me so I can see the case difference here and the case percent difference. Just automatically brought that in for me. So taking a look at a couple of these here, I can see for this vendor, we'll look at March here. Last year, we bought 1,000 cases from them. We're already over double that this year, and it is only April. So really quick glance into my vendors, how I'm doing last year from this year with my purchases from them. All right. Let's look at another example for our purchases report. Let's say I want to know which brands each vendor carries, okay? And I want to know how many cases we bought from each one of them in the last year. So what do they carry and how much of it did we buy? All right. For this one, I'm still grouping by vendor. I still want to know my vendors. But instead of month, I want to see the brand. What brands do they carry? So I'm going to change my child from months to brand. There we go. I still want to see cases, so I can leave my cases the same here. I'm not necessarily interested in a year over year comparison. It doesn't hurt to leave it here because I'm only going to be looking at 1 year anyway, so I'll just leave it. But I do want to see last year instead of this year. So I'm going to change my period to last year. And I only want to see last year, so I only need 1 year's worth of data. Now, I work out of that Sterling location, so for the sake of this report, I am going to add in a location filter here. So I'm going to use my inventory filter. Oops, wrong one. I'll use my shipment filter. All right. And I've got a to location here. So where did that purchase go? Where did we receive it? I'll choose Sterling. And let's see what we get. Okay. So I still see my vendors grouped in that top grouping in that gray bar. But now I see all of the brands that they carry that we buy from them. I can see the number of cases that we bought from them last year for each brand, and it brought in that automatic column total for me. So this is the percent makeup of all of the brands that we buy for them and how much of those we are buying as the total overall. So I got each of my not my distributors, my vendors here, all of their brands, how much we bought from them last year. Okay, I'm going to pause here for any questions before we move on to the next one, just see if Alex has any for me.
Yeah, if you have a quick second, do you think you can
Yeah,
show a quick example of a products comparison report that shows only products that were created after a certain date?
let's see what we have here. So again, these are pretty simple. So we might not have something in here in our filters, but let's take a look what we've got. All right. I'm looking to see if we have a created date in here. Let's try inventory. Nope. Okay. So we don't have the filter ability in this specific report to pull in that created date or the launch date in this particular report. There may be something in the sales report. Let's double check. This usually pulls in a little bit more. Nope, doesn't look like it. So for that particular report, we would need to move to Fusion. There are some products reports in our saved report library that might already have that in there. And we can kind of circle back to that at the end if we have some time. But it doesn't look like we have that ability in just the products port here. Pretty simple.
Awesome.
Any
Thank
others?
you. Nope, not any right now.
Okay, perfect. We're going to move into the next two then. So these ones kind of get into where we have a little bit more of like some special sauce in our comparison reports. We have some additional functionality that kind of make them special. So we're going to look at our pricing and invoice pricing reports. Now, you might be asking, why do we have pricing and invoice pricing? What's the difference? The reason that we have two types is because reporting on basic pricing set up in the system and the pricing that will actually hit a customer's invoice is different. So just because there's a price out there doesn't necessarily mean that a customer is going to qualify for it, right? So pricing is that kind of basic pricing structure. What's out there, what's available. Invoice pricing is the same logic that you would see if you were putting a product on an invoice for a customer. It's using that same pricing logic where it's going to look for the best price possible, the lowest price possible for that product that that customer qualifies for. So they're a little bit different. Let's look at both of them. So we're going to start with the pricing one. Again, this is just looking at everything that's out there, what's available. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to qualify for it. The thing that's special in these reports is down here in our filters, you'll notice we don't really have the same period filters down here. We have a pricing effective date and a customer. So essentially what this is asking is, when do you want us to look for when the pricing will be effective? Meaning like, am I looking a month in advance for some new promotions? Am I looking at today? And then who are we looking at for that pricing? Okay. So let's say I got a call from one of our customers and they want to know what they'll pay for all of our wind and clouds products. It's one of our suppliers, they're new, and they just want to see the pricing for it. All right. Again, I don't know product numbers, so I'm going to group all of this by product num and name so I can see the actual name of them. Guarantee our customers don't know them either. So we'll group by our product num and name here. All right. I don't necessarily need another grouping here. I just want to see all of the products. And my values, we'll put a few pricing values in here so they can kind of see the full picture. So I'll start with maybe the full price of that product. See if we have any discounts on that product. And I do have a discount field here. And then what's the unit price? So that full price and the discount. At the very bottom, I've got a unit price. So show me the full picture, the full price, any discounts available, and then what that unit price would be for the customer. Let's add in our special filters down here. So let's say we're going to go back in time just a little bit, and we'll say pricing effective March 1st. The customer that called me is our Booze Clues customer, maybe. Ooh, give me 1 second here. I'm going to do a quick switch. Bear with me. There we go. Okay. So again, we're going to do the product name in that primary grouping. There we go. Our full price, our discount, and our unit price. Perfect. We're going to go back to March 1st. And then we're looking at that Booze Clues customer. Here we go. All right. Now they wanted to know the pricing for our new supplier, that Wind and Clouds. So I'm going to come down to my filters down here, open up my product filters. And then I'm going to find my supplier filter. Here we go at the bottom. Search for that Wind and Clouds brewing supplier. Perfect. I don't really care about column totals for this. It's probably going to confuse the customer when I send this to them. So I'm going to turn off those automatic kind of calculations that get added in there. Again, this is pretty simple. One group by, a few values, but let's see what we get. Okay, so I get a list of my products for that supplier, my Wind and Cloud supplier. Their full price in the system, any discounts available for them, and then that unit price. So right off the bat, I can see one of my products here, and I'll zoom in a little bit because it's probably a little bit small. Here we go. This silly strawberry seltzer has a discount of $2, meaning the unit price is $12.25. What this doesn't tell me is, are there any conditions that I need to meet for this? Does the customer actually qualify for it? This is just kind of what's out there, right? I could add some additional groupings in here to see some additional fields like the conditions or whatever I need to meet that promotion, but there's actually an easier way to do this. If I pop back into the edit screen here and I switch over to invoice pricing instead, this is essentially creating like a fake invoice where I'm not actually putting any purchase or sale into the system. It's kind of like a hypothetical. So nice thing about switching between these two, if you noticed, it brought over the fields that I had in my pricing report. So I didn't have to redo them, which is kind of handy. So I've already got my groupings here. Looks like it already put in my date and my customer. The difference with this report, invoice pricing, is I have the ability to put this in just like an invoice, right? So I'm actually going to take my supplier filter out of this one because I'm just going to pick some specific products. I'm going to use this select products button at the bottom. Okay, this should look pretty familiar. It's just the product search. But what I can do here is search for my supplier here. So I'll search for Wind and Clouds. Hit search. It's going to bring up all the products for me. I'm just going to choose them all because they wanted to know everything, right? I'll hit save. And now at the bottom of my report, it's going to look almost like an invoice. So I get that product, but then I have this column that's editable for the num units. So how much hypothetically would they be buying? Okay. I'm going to leave them all as one for now, just so we can see that price and create the report. Oops, I lost my customer. Put Booze Clues back in. There we go. Okay. Looks incredibly similar to the last report, right? I get the list of products, their price, their discount, their unit price. But I notice, here's that silly strawberry seltzer we saw that $2 discount for. It's set to 0. That would mean if that customer was only buying one of these, they don't get a discount. Now, I know, because I set up this promotion, that there is a 3-case minimum for this discount. So what I can do is come back down here, fill this out like it would be a normal invoice, and say they're going to buy 3 cases of this one instead of just one. And when I create that report now, I'm going to see that discount. So it's doing that actual invoice pricing in the background like you're creating an invoice. a really good way for like quotes if a customer calls in and they want to know, hey, what would I pay for this if I bought this many cases or this many kegs or whatever it may be for the promotions that you have going on. It's a quick way to do that without having to go create that actual invoice, right? It uses the exact same logic in the background. All right. Any other questions before we move on from pricing?
We have a question that's a little bit more on the specific side, so I'm gonna wait for that
Okay,
one. And same with the other questions. So we're gonna kind of wait till the end for those ones. We'll just
okay,
keep moving along right now.
perfect. Let's keep going. All right, so those are our pricing reports. Now we're going to take a look at the next two here. So accounts receivable is our next one. This one also has a little bit of some special sauce in here. Now, the special one in this report is that instead of the classic 6 value fields that we get in our other reports, so if we look at like our sales report, we get the 6 values here. In accounts receivable, we got a lot more here, right? The reason that we have this many for the specific report is because when we switched from those canned reports to include comparison, this one specifically replaced an old accounts receivable report that was just one of those canned reports. And it had the ability to have all of these fields on here. So when we switched, we wanted to make sure that you all got the same capability with the comparison report. So you get all of these different options in here. You can have many more values than the rest of the comparison reports. The other special thing that I have in this report is my statement date filters. So in addition to the normal date filters that I have in the other reports, I have a statement date filter here. And they have kind of some special functionality in how I could filter things out down here. Okay. So we'll create just a simple report here so you can see kind of how those filters work. So I'm going to group by AR account here. I'm just going to leave that the same. But I want to see for each of my AR accounts the invoices for them and their due dates. So let's do invoice link. If you don't know, anything that you see in comparison that has this link on the end will be an actual hyperlink that you can just go navigate right to that invoice. So pretty handy. And then I want to see the invoice's due date. So here's my due date field. All right. And then we'll pick a few values here so you can see kind of how some of them work. I'll leave this open balance here so we can see what they owe for those invoices. And then let's look at their invoice total as well. Maybe they've paid off some of it, not all of it. Show me the whole invoice total. Okay, that's where these special filters come in. So I have a couple different things I can do here. I can look at a specific statement date if I'm worried about a very specific date. I have an open balance field here that lets me filter to either all of the invoices for those AR accounts or only the ones that have open balances. I just want to see the ones that aren't paid. So let's just do include open balance only. This next one here, show balance with, lets me decide which ones with balance do I want to see. So I have things like ones that are overdue, invoice aging, ones that have unused credits, some kind of further filtering on the ones that have that open balance. I'm interested in the invoices that are overdue. So I'm going to choose this show balance with overdue. I could look at a specific product too. Maybe I'm looking at a specific non-inventory product or whatever it may be. You can get as specific as product is here as well. But my report is going to show me by AR account, show me the invoices and due dates, their open balance in total, but only show me ones that have an open balance and ones that are overdue. So when I create my report here, I'm going to get my list of products and it pulled over that filter from my last report for my Boost Clues customer. Looks like they owe us quite a bit of money because this is a test site. So I've got all of the invoices for them here. Their due dates looks like these are all from last year, so they are way overdue. And their open balance and invoice total here. Again, that invoice link is pretty handy. I can pop right over to this invoice and take a look at, what they bought here, get some more information on it right from their report. Okay, now I'm going to remove that Booze Clues filter here so we can get kind of a better picture because that pulled over from my old report. All right, now without that Booze Clues filter, I should be seeing all of my customers in the system who are overdue. I see right off the bat my Walmart, because this is a test site and they're not actually paying anything, they have a lot of invoices, right? They owe us quite a bit of money. They have quite a few credits in here. There's a lot going on for them. I'm going to pare down this report a little bit better because they are our hot hitters here. So I'm going to come back into my edit screen. I'm going to filter this down a little bit further to our Walmarts. So I'm just going to go to the chain filter here and choose our Walmart customers. We have quite a few of them, so let's just choose them all. Perfect. And then rerun this report. And actually, instead of maybe the invoice link here and just the due date, maybe I want to see a little bit more detail about the customers that fall under that AR account. We know Walmart is typically one or two AR accounts, and we have the tons and tons of Walmarts underneath them. So I want to get a little bit more detail here. I'm actually going to move these two because they are important down to the detail instead and give me a little bit more grouping. So I'm going to do my invoice link and my due date down here, but I want to group my invoices and due dates by the actual customer. So we'll do the customer num and company here, meaning group all my customers by the AR account and then show me their invoices. So same thing, I'm going to run the report. This is going to give me a little bit clearer picture into those Walmarts that are our top contributors to our overdue invoices in this test site. So here's that Walmart that we saw the AR account before. And then underneath them, I have these light gray bars for the actual customers that are responsible for those invoices. So breaking it out a little bit further, we can see if there's anybody who is a problem child for us. Looks like our Walmarts are a huge problem for this test site. And then we can drill into those invoices still. So I still get that link that I can pop over and take a look at that invoice. All right. So that's accounts receivable, pretty simple. It's just kind of those special filters that you get here to pair into your different AR accounts and those invoices and load sheets and the statuses that they're in. Okay. We're going to jump to the next one here so we can get through the rest of them. We've got about 20 minutes left. We are going to kind of skip through these next few here because there's really nothing special happening with them. So journal entries, assets, time clock, merchandiser depletions, bin trans, bin inventories, and tasks. So these next few here, there's really nothing special happening in them. So like they don't have the special filters like the other ones do. There's no special functionality like the invoice pricing. They are just different tables and different ways to group information. So like our journal entries report, like you would think, pulls information from that journal entries tables, the journal entry trans, products, customers, invoice, and load sheets. You're just getting different table data and different fields to choose from. Nothing super fancy happening in these. I do want to focus on some of our other reports that have that special functionality. I encourage you to come into these, click around, try some different things, and use those different fields and filters and try to make something that is going to be beneficial to you. But I do want to move on to our surveys report here at the very end. We're going to quickly touch on this one. It is incredibly different than the other reports that we've looked at. I'm going to zoom out here because there's a lot going on. I'm going to do a couple examples here. If you want some more information on this particular report, we are having a session at BevAge where we kind of deep dive into this report. So if you're coming to BevAge, there's a display surveys session that we take a look at this report a little bit deeper, but let's look at the overall for now. Obviously, this is the most unique type of comparison report that we have. Let's say I'm running that display survey and I want to see the results of the survey so far. Okay. This special function that happens in this particular report happens down here in this add all questions from this objective button. Basically what this does is lets me pull in for a specific objective all of the questions that are on that survey. Okay. So I'm going to search for my display survey here. This is the one I'm looking for. We just ran this display survey 2.0. And when I click this add all questions from this objective, it's going to bring all of the questions from that survey into its own column. So like another sales report, these are going to represent kind of my values. So each question will have its own column in the report, and underneath each column is going to be all of those answers. Okay. Now I get the same groupings like all of my other reports, but I have customer name and company here twice, which isn't super helpful. So I'm going to switch these around. Thinking about a survey, typically I want to know who took that survey or who it was assigned to. So in my parent, I'm going to do the assigned to field. Who was that task assigned to? And then because it's a display survey and they're taking that at a customer, I want to see who they took that display survey for. So what customer were they at? I'm going to choose that customer name and company. And then when did they complete it? So I've got a date completed field. So show me who it's assigned to, and then group all of their customers and the dates completed of when they did that actual survey. The two kind of other special things that are happening in this report here come from these two options at the top. So multiple survey answers and include customers without answers. Our multiple survey answers lets us differentiate between what answers we want to see. Do I want to see all of the answers that have ever been taken for this survey? Or do I only want to see the last time the survey was taken for each customer? So I can see we're grouping by customer down here. If we've taken this display survey multiple times for the same customer, do I want to see them all or just the last time it was taken? For my sake, I'm just going to include them all so we can see some more results. It's really up to you about what you want to see. Include customers without answers is probably doing what you think it's doing. You get a true or a false. This just means if there's, say, like a task assigned out there, but that customer hasn't had it completed yet, you could set this to true, and they would just get kind of a blank line. You would see their name, but that's about it. Be a pretty quick way to say, like, oh, we haven't taken it for this customer yet. They're still here, I see them, but it's blank. I know that it hasn't been done yet. So whichever you prefer. The rest, there's nothing special happening down here. You get your normal filters, your normal periods, nothing super fancy happening. The fancy stuff is all happening up here at the top. I'm going to skip over the three columns here because they're a little bit more complex. Again, if you're interested in those, highly recommend you come to BevAge and join that display survey session. Now, because this is a test site, I'm going to go way back in time so we can actually see some data. But let's take a look at what this report does. Okay. Essentially, what this is doing is pulling in a column for each one of the questions on the display survey. And then I'm getting the answer underneath. I still get my grouping. So I've got my assigned to, who took that survey, the customer that it was taken for, and the date they completed it. And then all the way across horizontally, I see all of the answers for that. The nice thing about this report is I can pull in all of the data types. If you're familiar with objectives, we have things like images, which we see here, this lovely mouse. We have signatures, we have documents, all sorts of things that you can put into a survey, and we can easily pull those in here. So a very nice floor if you're interested, but it easily pulls those in here. All right. We are going to move to our 4 special types of reports to wrap up here, but I just want to check with Alex and see how we're doing with questions.
There's no questions as of right now, so you can keep on moving
Okay,
forward.
perfect. All right, we're going to move into those 4 special types of reports. We're going to start out with compound, which is probably the coolest type here. So what a compound report does is takes 2 existing comparison reports. So if you've already built 2 sales reports, say, and you want to merge them and display them together. A lot of times we do this when you're looking at 2 different time frames. Say you're looking at a year-over-year comparison in one and a month-to-date comparison in the other, and you want to see them side by side. You can do that with a compound report. What happens when you merge these together is it removes all of your group bys, but keeps your values, your filters, your period filters, everything else that you need in there. Okay. So at the bottom here, I've got a list of my saved reports here. And the way that I combine them, I'll just grab this sales rep last year, and I'm going to use the arrows to pull it into my selected reports. So I'll click the right arrow here, pick another one, and move it over. So I've got my two reports here. You can see down at the bottom, I still have the ability to change filters if I want to, but my date filters are using the periods from the report. So it's going to pull directly from the report I already created, and I don't have to change anything. So it's really nice if I'm looking at two different time frames. Okay. Here, I'm going to set those different group bys of what I want to see in both reports. So the groupings don't necessarily matter from here. I'm going to set them at that compound level. Okay. I'm just going to leave this as supplier so we can see how it works and create the report. It's going to take a second here because it's running a whole lot of data. But what happens is it's mushing together my two reports here. So I can see the cutoff. I have a year-over-year comparison here. Here's where my report splits. And this is my second report. So I've got a dollar volume report and a case of quiz report that I mushed together. Okay. There's two ways that I can actually do this. This first way is like the merged way. So I'm mushing those two reports together. If I don't like this view, I have another way that I can kind of mush these, and that's by these tabs at the top. So merged is the first option where we saw where they kind of smushed them all together. Tabbed is my other option. It's a little bit different here. Instead of removing my group bys, it's going to keep the reports exactly the same as they were when I built them, but they're not going to be smashed together in one big report. I'm going to get them in tabs in the same screen. So I'll let this load here. Okay. So now what I'm seeing is I get two tabs across the top here. I'm seeing the report exactly like I built it, and I can switch between the two here and see them on the same screen. So it really depends on how you want to see them. If you want the same group bys together, or if you would rather have the original report and just have them together in a tab. So kind of handy. Okay. The last ones we're going to look at here, we're just kind of going to breeze through them because we're not going to build something with them. They're a little bit specialized, but I want to talk about them so you know that they exist. So next one is ranking. It's not going to be the prettiest thing. You get two grouping options, a parent and a child. And your columns, you have a ton of options in here. Pretty much anything you could think of. Again, the purpose of this report is to do a rank. It's probably not the most used report anymore because the sales comparison report now has the ability to add in that column total to do a ranking for you. But if you wanted to, you wanted something a little more simple, you could do that here. So if I wanted to rank my brands by dollar volume, I can do a really simple ranking here. So all it does when I create that report is looks at the dollar volume and puts them in a rank. Not the most complex report. Again, you can do this in a sales comparison report now. This was before that functionality, but if you need just a simple ranking, you can do it here. All right. Next is data. This was the report that I said was very similar to a sales comparison report, but much more simplified. It is just the ability to have as many parents as you could imagine. These are really great for exporting. So if you're doing some work in an Excel spreadsheet or doing some sort of reporting outside of Encompass, this is a really great way to do a data dump. So bring in all the fields that you want, all the values that you want, do that data dump and export it. Gives you a little bit more to work with where you don't have those groupings and you get more options in those groupings. So instead of the 5 or 6 that you get in the sales comparison report, you get way more here that you can do kind of that data dump. And then finally, before we move to questions, we're going to look at our discount report here. So you can see this one looks a little bit different. We don't get any grouping options here. We only get a value. And that's because this report is entirely set up for you. You don't have to pick anything. This is the report I said that is primarily used for looking at participation. So let's just see what this looks like because there's some special functionality happening when we run it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a time frame here. I'm just going to look at, so that I know there's some data in here for us. I'm going to look at July of 2024. Okay. And then for those of you that sell Red Bull products, you know that they do lots of participation, excuse me. So I'm going to filter to our Red Bull products. Oops, wrong one. I want the supplier. Here we go. Okay. I'm going to leave this pretty simple and run our report so you can see what this looks like. Okay. So I didn't have to pick anything. No groupings, no values, no nothing. This is already set up for me. What I get here is a report that shows me some average information about price, discount, and participation. But where the kind of magic happens in this report is when I expand these rows. So let's take a look at our first one here. If I click the little plus sign, I get kind of a drill down report here for all the different transactions for that product, what we sold it at, the discount that they got, and the participation that's owed to us. So again, this is most commonly used for that participation. This particular report, when you're looking at these other values, are more commonly done in a Fusion report or that even just a basic sales report. But easiest way to find that participation is in this report. So that's probably where it's most commonly used. Oh, that was a lot of information. I'm going to bring us back here and talk about a few key takeaways before we jump into some questions. Now, like I said, a lot of reports don't need to be built in Fusion. There's so many things that you can do in comparison, especially with the many different types of reports that we have. So we always recommend that you try comparison first. If it can't get you exactly what you need, obviously you always have the ability to go to our report library or try and build a Fusion report or reach out to our support team or services team if you need help. Comparison reports are going to be much less error prone, right? Because they are doing all of that logic in the background for you. They don't need to be customized. You don't need to do expressions or table joins. That's all done for you. So you're less likely to get errors when you're using those comparison reports. And then really quickly to talk about, we do have the ability to disable these reports. So if you're like, boy, that's a lot of reports, I don't care about half of those, you can go disable those in your system settings if you have that permission. They are trying to think what their numbers are, and I can't think of them off the top of my head. If you just search in the description, disable, they will all pop up. You can disable them one by one. All right, that was a whole lot of information. Alex, what do we got?
Yeah, so there is one question. I just want to answer it right away just because it does kind of reflect one of your key takeaways. There was a
Yeah,
question that came in that revolved around may not having some of those options as far as those reporting tools, as far as like data ranking and discounts. So
yep,
if you want to show that, just because I would assume that it
yeah.
is disabled for them.
Let's do it. So in system settings, when you search in the description for disable, here's all of those reports here. So if you're missing like the data report, it just gets toggled on and off. So if this is set to true, that's why you're not seeing it. You'll just need to set it to false, so that will pop up for you.
And then correct me if I'm wrong with that too. That reflects the entire company, correct, Jossie?
It does. So again, it's a system setting, so that's going to be for everybody at your company who accesses your site. So make sure if you're turning something off, nobody else uses it, so you don't get a panicked call.
Perfect. And Chris, if that didn't answer your question, please feel free to let us know and we'd be happy to like discuss a little bit more. With that, I'm going to wait for a few more questions to come in because we do have a minute left. I am going to give Jossie a little break here and I'm going to kind of close up with the session. Thank you, Jossie, for presenting today and thank you for all of our attendees for attending. If you do have a moment after this session, we do have a survey and we really do appreciate all the feedback that you guys give us. So if you do have a moment, please fill that out. We do have BevAge coming up next month, so we would really love to see you all there as well. We have a bunch of cool labs and sessions that we are hosting. So you'd love to see Jossie and I's face there. Please show up. We do have about three more Skills Kickstart sessions in this season, so feel free to go to the e-learning dashboard and take a look at those. And this session will be in the recording archive by the end of the day today. So if you want to go back and rewatch this, feel free to go to that dashboard. With that, we'll go ahead and see if there's any more questions. And I'm not seeing any that came in during that. So, and we hit 10. So I think we can go ahead and end this. And I thank everybody again and thank Jossie.
Thanks everybody for bearing with me. I know that was a lot.
Awesome. Have a good one, everyone.
Thanks everyone.